Good morning, welcome. This is Sunrise Daily on a Tuesday morning. I'm Ayo Makinde.
It's a cool Tuesday morning and we're grateful to be here. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
Well, Marco was boasting yesterday that it rained in Abuja. Well, it rained in Lagos. Hello.
And it rains a lot more in Lagos than in Abuja, so you'd understand when Marco is grateful for cool and wet days, rare cool and wet days.
You mean grateful or boastful?
Well, grateful, I'd like to believe. Hello, Marco.
Well, I'm glad it rained in Lagos. I hope you guys didn't have to swim to work. Because you know what happens when it rains. I hope that the drainages are free and, and water could just, find its level. But while you finally get the answer to that one, we have a guest here in our Abuja studios, and we're going to be jumping right away to our paper review segment. Mr. Nuruddin Abdullah, who is the editor of 21st Century Chronicle and former assistant editor of Daily Trust, joins us here in our Abuja studios. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Good morning, thank you.
Well, I was making, a whole meal about the rain that fell in Abuja. I hope it didn't affect you in any way.
No.
Well, let's start with what the dailies are saying this morning. And Daily Trust has this one. Energy, food prices push inflation to 17-year high. That's what we have. Inflation figures, new inflation figures have just been released now. And it looks like it's not abating or easing at all. How is this affecting, businesses, for instance, and maybe the personal income of people that you know, and maybe even yourself?
Yes, I think the government agency is just confirming what many Nigerians know. In Abuja here, for instance, in January, February this year, the diesel, for instance, was about 300 plus per liter. But now it's over 700. So you see small businesses, barber shop, the market women, it is grossly affecting them. Don't even talk about the food prices. Everything is going to the roofs. So it's just a confirmation of what many Nigerians are going through daily.
Well, we know the government has been trying to do something about it. They've been quite worried about inflation and inflationary pressures. But it looks like we're yet to really feel the results of whatever it is that they're doing. I know that, there's been some move, especially around the foreign exchange, which is another item that has been affecting inflationary pressures. Do you think that the moves we saw, especially by Bureau de Change operators here in Abuja, did have any effect, or maybe we're yet to just see it? Do you think it's still going to come through before the end of the year?
We hope so, actually. But I think the problem is, it looks like not a long-lasting measure. Some DSS operatives and EFCC, we are the Zone 4 in Wusset, for instance, where the exchange, black markets take place. But I think maybe that's a short measure. What Nigerians need are actually concrete measures that will last the test of time. You remember the president has to even inaugurate a committee that will look into the influence, the rising cost of food items in the country. I think it was chaired by Vice President Yemi Osibanjo, but nothing we heard from it since 2 years after it was. So maybe we need concrete measures that will tackle this thing, maybe, and slow the trend so that Nigerians can breathe.
It's really a lot, to be honest. But you also have a number of other stories here. Why we pioneered non-interest banking, that's from Jaiz Bank chairman. Kenyan poll, quite a lot to chew on there. Protest, jubilation, trail Ruto's victory. Page 26 will give you details. And you also have this last story. My only agenda is to serve Nigerians. That's from Atiku. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust newspapers.
And flip to the Nigerian News Direct, which has the same story as the Daily Trust has, but it has its own riders that are unique to it. Outrage over 17 years highest inflation rate of 19.64%. Stories on page 4. Political leadership reason for continuous increase, ascribed to Oyedokun. Current administration has brought retrogressive policies on economy's governance, according to Odewale. FG must restudy concept paper of Operation Feed the Nation to induce investors. That, Mr. Abdullah, is what I would like you to speak to. What is it? I mean, we've been talking for as far back as I can remember about returning to agriculture. Operation Feed the Nation was a concept of the military in, I think, 1977, 78 or thereabout. And here someone is proposing that we should restudy it. Do you think it's something that we need to go back to restart agriculture?
Yes, because if you look at the scenario now, almost every government comes with one policy or the other. We had Operation Feed the Nation, Juari Shagari, the IBB, all the military agents up to the present administration, where we have the anchor borrowers, for instance. The CBN is saying that over 1 trillion naira has been disbursed as loans to farmers in the last 6 years. But fundamentally, apart from the funding aspect of it, or renaming the policy, there are certain variables that the federal government has to look into. One is that of security. In this part of the country, for instance, we talk about the Northwest, we talk about some parts of the North Central, farmers can't even go to farm. You know, in places like Zamfara, Sokoto, locals have to even pay ransom to go and plant, and even during harvest, they have to pay money to some bandit kingpins to go and harvest their clothes. Not talk about the mass displacement. There is now, if you look at what is happening, most of the capital cities in the Northwest and some part of the North Central, people are trooping from the villages to the capital city. So the issue of agriculture is grossly affected.
Okay.
So I think it is more than changing the name or reverting to Operation Feed the Nation, or discarding anchor borrows or what have you. There are certain variables that the federal government has to look into it. First and foremost, security. People need to be scared to go to farm.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Well, there are so many other stories on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct this morning, but I'll take just one. Is this a result of inflation? ASU strike 6 months after businesses shut down on varsity campuses. That they even lasted up to 6 months is something cheering. That's the Nigerian News Direct this morning.
But the Nigerian Tribune toes a different path with its big story this morning, and it goes thus. I have not resigned. I have a 4-year mandate that's attributed to the national chairman of the PDP. Let's take a look at the riders. Atiku, Wike, Camps failed to hold reconciliation meeting. Atiku in fresh move to galvanize support from the Southwest. And lastly, from the riders, we have to receive defecting SDP members in Ekiti. And that's been denied by the leader of the party in Ekiti State, former Governor Segun Oni, who was a candidate in the just concluded election. Now, you can't just do a double take on the continuing internal wranglings in the People's Democratic Party. Mr. Abdallah, I'd like you to speak to this. Many had said that, look, the demands made by the governor of Rivers State, to have the issues resolved were a bit extreme. Now, the national chairman is responding, saying, look, I will run my full tenure. How are you weighing in on the PDP crisis, particularly as it affects, the party's chances, or perhaps it does not, ahead of the general elections in 2023?
I think the PDP crisis is not new if you look at the political history, particularly of most of the political parties. They had the same issue even in 2015. They had the same issue in 2019. And from the way things are going, the issues may be resolved before election. And, the election takes place February next year. They have more than 5 months to resolve all the differences. I think maybe what Governor Wike is saying, he's rising his tax so that, he will be comfortable when the Atiku come to the table for dialogue. So it is expected, and if you look at the scenario, the election is not happening next month or in the next 2 months. It's happening 5 or 6 months after. So they have a long time to resolve all these differences, and go to election. And with the way things are happening, I think the opposition party will not allow their individual differences, to affect their chances in the next election. Because if you look at the APC and the PDP candidate, for instance, this is his almost last battle, so to say.
Interesting line of thought there. Like others, you also think that he's negotiating, to give himself a place of strength ahead of the general election, and should PDP win that presidential election in 2023. But let's go above the nameplate and look at just 1 or 2 more stories. Still on the inflation story, inflation rate rises to 19.64%, highest in 17 years, and all the other indicators too experienced an increase. Food inflation in particular. In the past there was the Price Control Board. While it's understandable to have food crops, having an increase, across board because of the high cost of transportation from one part of the country to the other, there are some other staples that do not necessarily require transportation. But in Nigeria, they say that everything that goes up, hardly comes down. Do you agree that this seeming helplessness should remain, or is there a way that perhaps the Price Control Board of the past can be returned to check prices of staples that do not necessarily have to go up?
Yes, my thinking is this: it will be difficult to have those price control board that we have in those days. Mostly it was during the military dictatorship. Now, I think the forces of demand and supply determine the prices, whereas the economy, the way those in power, run it, determine the CPI, that is the Consumer Price Index, the per capita of the public. But bringing those boards now, I don't think it will not solve the problem. So many things are accumulated to take us where we are today. The borders were closed. You remember, look at in the last 6 years, how much was 50 kg of rice? It was about 10,000. But now, it's more than 30,000. 35 in some parts of the country. So I think instead of using that draconian measure, we have to look at the economic variables. The experts need to advise the government. The government must take economy very serious. And unfortunately, that was what the present administration did not do at the beginning of since they came in 2015. It took more than 2 or 3 years for the president to appoint an economic advisor. Even when he did, he domiciled the economic advisor in the office of the vice president. He had an economic team. Well, last they meet, So, all these things happen. All these things need to be put into consideration to stabilize the system. But bringing one rule that was used, or policy, during military may have very insignificant impact in the present situation.
Yeah, indeed, there are quite a number of other stories on the front page of the Tribune. I'll just take this and we'll be done with the Tribune. Experts decry Nigeria's penchant for abandoned buildings. Say over 50,000 buildings valued at 9.5 trillion naira wasting in Nigeria. Interesting. That's it for the Nigerian Tribune this morning.
Well, coming back to Abuja right now, we have the Guardian, and you see what they're saying. 19.6% inflation more people become poor, experts warn. I think we've already focused quite a bit on that particular story. Defies interest rate hike, rattles analysts, surges to 19.6%, highest since 2005. Figures reflection of more scary future. That's someone speaking. We don't know who is. Okon, civil servants most hit. Purchasing power very weak. Suspend telecoms beverage tax, says Owaleke. Rein in 19.7 trillion naira ways and means loans to federal government. Galloping inflation, recipe for recession, higher unemployment. Economists insist. Page 6 is where you'll find details for that. You also find a number of other stories. This one is political. PDP crisis. You can't decide for a presidential candidate, says McCarthy. Page 6 is where you find details. At the bottom, they have a number of stories which you might have seen elsewhere, but let's take a look at this one. Niger Delta leader Ajube alleges neglect of Ondo mandate areas by NDDC. Page 7. Sometimes it's difficult to remember that Ondo is a part of the NDDC, but they are a part of it. And Fulani elite disown Miyetti Allah's statement on Obi. Did you see the initial statement by Miyetti Allah?
Yes, I think a day or so ago.
We find another group now coming up to disown that particular statement. Do you think we'll see more and more things like this?
Yeah, we are heading to an election, so, all these groups that are based at the capital cities of the states will spring up to get one or two political favors. Actually, they are not really, to me, representing the hardest. Yeah, they are in Abuja, or Lagos, or
that's the Miyetti Allah.
It's an elite urban thing, moving from one. Look at it this way. If Obi may reach out to them, they will speak another language. And more groups, even apart from the Miyetti Allah, they have the Makban. So there are so many of them.
So the Makban is actually Miyetti Allah as well. Yes. But there's Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, and then there's Miyetti Allah Kauta Hori. I think Kauta Hori was the one that issued the statement, the offending statement, and they have actually been issuing statements that have been causing quite a bit of offense. Don't forget that the governor of Benue State, is always taking up an issue with Miyetti Allah Kauta Hori. But that story for you will be on page 45 of the Guardian newspapers. I think that we can leave it there. Look who's here.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well. Well, yeah, so perhaps we should just go ahead and jump to the next one, which is the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Also a bit of politics, which you've spoken about, some of the headlines you highlighted, but it's PDP. Atiku holds rally in Yola. Wike's allies meet in Port Harcourt. Odele's birthday overshadows anticipated meeting. I've not resigned. No plan to do so, says Ayu. Oyinlola tipped to be Atiku's campaign DG. Giving Wike chairmanship slot will solve crisis, Senator Okon. Wike won't leave PDP. He's a principled politician, Dele Momodu. So, yeah, much as to say crisis in PDP is not new. But sometimes when you look at all of these dynamics, even though it's not new, does that mean that we can't expect something new from this seeming fracas, if we could call it that?
Yes, like the Rivers governor, what he is doing, he lost out at the PDP primaries. So, and he's an outgoing governor. He is not coming to the Senate. So, all these things are happening. What are his plans?
So, is that significant?
Very, very.
If he was coming to the Senate?
Yes. It's a retirement, if I use that word, retirement home for most of our outgoing governors. After 8 years, I won't go back to my village. I have to come to Abuja and be a senator. Maybe some of them, there is a senator, former governor. He left the Southeast since 2007. He's still at the Senate. You even hardly see him on TV. Until recently, now he's making all manner of statements and whatever. So it's a retirement home. And Wike, like his other colleagues, okay, what is for me after leaving office? You need to have one political appointment or the other, as, at least, as even security. Because you don't know who is taking over from you. the EFCC, ICPC, all these kind of things. So it's a protection kind of thing. So it's actually expected.
Unfortunately, that it turns out that's the way it comes across, as it is a retirement for them. Wow. Yes, you also have commented on this statement, this lead story at the bottom, Street Fulani Group disowns Miyetti Allah's statement on Obi, where you say, if he reaches out to them, they'll sing a different tune. Sounds like politicians. But look at this. Blackout looms as electricity workers begin strike tomorrow. Picket TCN today. We know that ASU strike is ongoing, and then another strike upon us. So what can we make of this?
It's actually unfortunate because we are grappling with even blackouts now. So if they down tool now, it will be total blackout. You understand? And I just read sometimes, was it yesterday, that the federal government has invested 2.9 trillion on power since 2013 when it was privatized. But what is the generation capacity? Average of 4,000. How much do we even have? So actually, it's a source of concern. It will worsen the situation now. Look at the inflation. Okay, by the time they down tool, I hope, like the experts are saying, from Sri Lanka to Sierra Leone, you start with SS, Sri Lanka, Sierra Leone. I don't know if you look at the alphabetical, Sri Lanka is far away, but Sierra Leone is closer to us. And because of what? Inflation.
Well, not far from Abuja here, this happened. Gunmen invade Kogi market, kill one, abduct another, demand 20 million naira ransom. It sounds like fiction, but wow. Sometimes, you see these headlines, you just wonder if they're beginning to invade markets and abducting people. So
it's time for marketers too, people in the market, to have their own vigilante.
20 million naira ransom for marketers.
From market women and men.
How do they?
When you say marketers, it sounds like oil marketers.
Sorry, market women.
And I think I caused that. So, but yes, from simple market people, quite a lot to wrap your head around. Let's leave it here for Vanguard newspapers.
And flip to the leadership newspaper. And Mr. Abdallah, I'm going to have to put you on the spot here as an editor. Look at that lead headline. PDP crisis deepens. Ayo calls Wike's bluff. Says he has 4-year tenure. I don't know. Would you say that on the podium, that's exactly what he did? Or it's just the editor's perspective to the story?
Yes, I think if the editor's perspective to the story, they want a biting headline for clickbait, it attracts even your attention, Mr. Ayo, so it's a clickbaiting system used by the editors, particularly when, the story is everywhere. Almost all the newspapers have the story on the front page. So the editor needs to look different by dramatizing his headline. But by and large, I don't think that the PDP chairman will call the Rivers governor's bluff just like that, as they say, No, sure, yeah.
Abdallah, thank you for your time this morning.
Okay, thank you very much.
We're back in a moment, everyone. Stay with us.
The challenge of insecurity has once again come to the fore as the president chairs the launch of a national crisis management doctrine developed by the Office of the National Security Advisor and witnessed by service chiefs at the council chamber. President Buhari acknowledges the enormous effect of the 13-year-old insurgency on the capacity of security agencies.
The emergence of the Boko Haram terrorists group, as well as bandits and kidnappers in Nigeria, considerably changed the country's security situation, leaving panic in the minds of the populace. These and other security challenges confronting the nation tend to stretch the deployment of our security agencies, resources, and national security apparatus. Owing to the dynamics of this crisis, the Office of the National Security Advisor revised the National Counter-Terrorism Strategy, which I endorsed in August 2016. This doctrine is aimed at bridging the gap created by extensive deployment of security services through fostering collaboration amongst ministries, departments, and agencies, thereby ensuring greater successes in tackling national crisis.
The doctrine, which is a subset of the National Counter-Terrorism Strategy, was hatched in 2014. The National Security Advisor explained that it will foster the implementation of the strategy.
This doctrine provides a detailed methodology for national crisis response, outlining how the various relevant ministries, departments, and agencies of government should interact at the strategic, operational, and tactical levels. It is to be noted that the National Crisis Management Doctrine can be used to manage both malicious threats and civil emergencies.
The doctrine, developed by the Office of the National Security Advisor, is with the aim of ensuring greater confrontation in the fight against terrorism. From the Presidential Villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, we're going to have to start off talking about security this morning, as some of the headlines which you saw also did raise a lot of concern. But this morning, we're joined by retired Major General Saleh Maina, who is here with us in the studios. Good morning, sir. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Thank you, viewers.
We're just going through some of the issues that have played themselves out yesterday and even before today. One of those major highlights this morning is the fact that gunmen now invade markets, as is reported this morning. One person was abducted, another was killed. They demanded 20 billion naira ransom from market women. A certain commissioner of information was kidnapped in his village yesterday. And then over the weekend, we've seen different scenarios. Now, much as the government has launched this National Crisis Management Doctrine with a view to addressing the security challenges we face, but what plays out there appears to be a different scenario. I mean, you've been at the very top of security, so you have a broad perspective of what plays out. So from your perspective, having seen how all of this is going on, and if you look at how government is handling it, are people crying wolf where there is none when they say they can't feel the impact of security agencies with respect to security?
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you, viewers. Good morning. I'm happy to be here. The public is not playing wolf because it's obvious that we're being threatened, or the citizens are under very, very serious threats. And as I appeared on TV a few minutes ago, the introductory to this program, Boko Haram has been on for about 13 years. And the past 6 or 7 years, new challenges emerged about cattle rustling, kidnapping, sacking of villages, raiding of markets, and so on. So the public is not crying wolf. Now, talking about the measures being put in place, including the review of the national security strategy that you talked about, it's all about implementation. A lot of people say there's no wrong with our constitution, with the implementation. So it is with every other strategy, every other document. The bottom line is implementation of whatever laws, whatever tasks, whatever programs, whatever strategies. If you look at the history of, let's say from Second World War, there are several documents, Geneva Convention, laws of armed conflict, we have constitution. We inherited so many documents from the British military, keeping the peace. We have our own rules of engagement. We have defense doctrine and so on. So implementation is the issue.
But General, well, if I could say, general citizens talk about implementation being a challenge in that sector, but for military, isn't that what's supposed to be strange to them? I mean, when you train, when you used to just direct command and control. So when it comes to security, should that word implementation be a challenge? Should it even be a thing?
Yes, it is a challenge.
Why?
That's how life is. Everywhere in the world, the bottom line is implementation. No matter how beautiful the rules, the procedures, the documents are mapped out. And it's for the system. I would prefer to call it system than call it government. It's for the system now to review. Why is the implementation an issue? What are the bottlenecks? What are the problems? And address them.
So, but what do you think can be the challenge when a commander-in-chief gives a straight directive telling security agencies, look, you have to go out there and end this madness. We can't afford this anymore. Why will there be a problem implementing that?
Well, let me make it clear. I'm not here on behalf of government. I'm not a government official.
I mean, you've been...
I'm not in the military. Yeah. I've been out of the system for more than 10 years. And it would be unfair for me to point particular fingers at particular areas where the problems are. But I will say that the buck stops at the table of the commander-in-chief. It's about tasking. There are various agencies, and these agencies have their tasks. And the tasks are overlapping. And if there are problems, if there are security challenges, for the commander-in-chief to task that particular security agency or agencies, and where there are more than one agency, then there must be what is called a lead agency, so that there will be no conflict about leadership. Now, where things are not going on right, you make a review. Now, when you task, you provide all the resources that are required, or as much as possible, the resources that are required, tangible and intangible resources for the task to be accomplished. And in the military, you give a deadline. You don't say, oh, go and do this. No, you give a deadline. And you monitor as the implementation of the tasks are going on. Now, where there are issues that are causing delays or things are not going on well, you review. If it is to change the tactics or change the task, you change.
So where do you think we are missing some things here with respect to ensuring that we review or find out where something is going on and fix it and address the problem?
It's difficult to say. It's difficult to say. Let me give you an example. If you look at these reviews, this document that was just implemented now, it's supposed to be reviewed every 5 years. Same thing with defense doctrine. These are documents that should be reviewed every 5 years, I think, because of the changing security challenges. That's the general rule or trend. Now, talking about where the problem is, if you look at, it's all about monitoring. If you task, you monitor. And while you're monitoring, you look at why things are not going all the way they are going. and then you fix it. If it is that's after providing all the logistics that are required. You give a deadline. If it cannot meet that deadline, then you check why. Is it more personnel? Is it more trained personnel? Is it more equipment? And you amend. Now, talking about that lead agency, is to avoid conflict. And if you look at when the UN, let me make a safe example. When the UN office was bombed, so many agencies were on their own. You can't know who was injured, who was killed, how many, who is taken to which hospital, because everybody was on his own. The police and other security agencies, the National Security and Civil Defense Corps, everybody was on his own. But if there's a lead agency, everybody will report there. But that's a major area.
Are we in doubt as to who the lead or which lead agency is in this kind of scenario now?
That's why I said when you task, you see, it's like I said, it's difficult for me, as though I know you gave me a lot of credentials, you gave me a lot of confidence, a lot of trust to deliver. But you see, I was making an example with the office of the NSA. 2011 Terrorism Prevention Act, as amended 2013, makes the chief of the...
Even further amended 2022.
Further amended 2022. Makes the National Security Advisor the coordinator of national security. All the security agencies and intelligence agencies supposed to be coordinated by the National Security Advisor and advise the government accordingly. Now, me and you do not know to what extent he's doing his job, whether he's doing giving the advice properly, professionally or not, and we don't know whether he's giving the advice but it's not being implemented. So it will not be fair for me and you to sit down here and apportion where the blame is.
Yes, but from, I mean, as Chamberlain rightly pointed out, you've been in the system. If you had fears while you were in the system, I'm sure that from where you stood, you might be able to project to say, look, if things continue like this, continue along this trajectory, I will not be surprised if we're at this point, how many years down the line. I do not know what it was like when you were in, but obviously the UN bombings happened while you were still in service. And I'm sure, I do not know what changes were made as a result of that. But after you left, from your own perspective, from your own understanding of how the inside works, are you surprised that Nigeria is currently facing the sort of security challenges that she has on her hands?
Yes, I am. And I'm not happy about it. Nobody will be happy about it.
Indeed.
And because the primary responsibility of government is security, and that's unambiguously stated in Section 14 of the Constitution.
So if you're surprised, are you curious as to what exactly, what could be informing the lapses that we're witnessing, which is resulting in the sort of, I don't want to use the word failures, but when people die and when security fails in certain instances, it's a failure. So are you curious, have you cast your mind to what exactly could be responsible for these lapses which we're seeing, which is resulting in the deaths of people?
Yes, I've been more than curious. I've been worried. I've been a near fatal victim twice.
Wow.
Near fatal victim twice. And I love this country. This is my country. I'm not going anywhere. Neither are my children. And like I said, it's difficult to apportion blame. It's difficult to point as to where. And if you look at, in 2014, we made, there was a two-day conference. I sent a copy to my contribution to Chamberlain last night. I don't know whether I received it. And it's about that insecurity. We're trying to address where are the problems. Because I don't want to be boastful, but during my time, there were some leverages probably compared to now. Leverages in the sense that, I don't know. Like I said, it's difficult. I don't want to sound as if I'm praising myself. But okay, 2009, when President Yar'Adua gave the order for security. I think it was Sunday, 26th of July, 2009. I think he was going to Brazil. A very embarrassing situation. People were dying in Borno. And he gave the order that security agencies should use everything in their power to restore law and order. And we went to Maiduguri, had a good team there, and we were able to restore law and order by Wednesday, by the 29th, evening of the 29th.
Well,
okay.
If I could just follow up on that.
Yes.
You said he gave the order, and then you moved and were able to restore order. So what do you think is different then? The Commander-in-Chief gives another then. Today we've seen several orders given by the Commander-in-Chief, and we don't see this same kind of response of them moving and getting there, even though it's stand corrected. But many always say they don't see that. Why do you think that is the case?
Well, it's difficult to say, but insecurity, it's all over the world. It's not easy to manage insecurity, especially where you allow it to lapse for so long. If you look at Sri Lanka, see how long it took before they could counter Tamil Tigers. It took several years. If you look at British Army, it took them more than 3.5 decades to handle Irish Republican Army, British Army. More than 3 decades.
Yeah, but when you
so I'm not making excuses.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is that it's not an easy operation that you can just give the order and it's done. Then number two, there could be perhaps fears of blame or taking initiative and so on and so forth that has, because like I said, I'm a little bit rusty. I don't want to be fair to the government. I don't want to be fair to the armed forces.
Yeah, but when you talk about leverages, you say the president gave you an order and you said there was leverage.
He gave the order.
Yeah, gave the order.
Armed forces, or the security agencies.
Well, maybe I meant you in that context.
He gave the order to the security agencies to do everything in their power.
When you spoke about leverage, what did you mean?
I mean initiative. Initiative, personal initiative. That's what I mean by leverage. And that's an individual thing to a large extent. Because you want to do something, should you go ahead and do it? Is it your duty? Suppose something goes wrong. Suppose it doesn't go wrong. Will I be blamed if it doesn't go wrong? Or sorry, if it doesn't go right? Will I be blamed if there are heavy casualties? These are probably the causes. Probably.
Oh, General, our colleagues in Lagos have got questions for you as well. Guys?
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. General, I'm looking at that document now, and something stood up to me. I've, tried to scan through, and I'm seeing some things that I mean, part of which we raised questions yesterday. Hopefully, we'll be able to raise some with you as well. But looking at, the document, the part that talks about media arrangements, and it's on page 9, and it lists 4 things that says that there'll be pressure to provide information in order to meet legal compliance requirements, warn and inform the public, protect the government's reputation. That's the third of 4. At a time when one would say the trust between government and the governed is at an all-time low, how do you see the media being able to do that creditably, protect the government's reputation?
Well, you should tell me. You are the media.
No, I'm asking you because it's a security issue. It's a security issue. So how is that important in the scheme of things is what I'm asking.
It's very important because that will give the morale, the confidence, the trust. It will ginger the security agencies in doing their jobs professionally. To also give the needed public support from the public. In 2011, I delivered a paper at University of Jos, Department of Mass Communication. The theme of the conference, I think, was media management of conflicts in Africa. So, and I did mention how we manage crisis, the media manages crisis, showing, exaggerating, or being anti-government, not supporting the government, not supporting security agencies, showing gory pictures, which we don't see in developed countries. For example, I think in the flooding in New Orleans, we never saw one corpse floating on water. During the September 11th, we didn't see one single corpse. But here, we show all sorts of things that discourage the public, discourage security agencies. So it is you, the media, that are challenged, that are tasked to be patriotic in your reporting, to encourage the public, encourage the armed forces, encourage security agencies. Remember, even during Falklands War, 1982, I think Margaret Thatcher threatened the BBC about their reporting that was anti-British or anti-British armed forces, and threatened to close them, and even encourage the public to carry out protests against the BBC. So the document is urging you, the media, to support the government, encourage the government, support the armed forces, encourage the armed forces in doing their jobs professionally, so that we can have a peaceful and developed Nigeria.
Well, the issue you raised about the functions of the media border on ethics of the profession, which, you know, it's something that every media organization has a way of self-sponsorship. But when it comes to protecting the reputation of government as opposed to protecting the image of the nation, at a time when, as I said, and you may want to refer to that now, that people do not really trust government much because of what they consider a huge failure on the part of government to protect their lives and property.
Yeah, that is true. And it still comes back to you. If you look at, as I said earlier, there are crimes and insecurity all over the world. And I think a few days ago, I think the US president did mention the number of shootings, daily shootings in America, and the number of people that are killed every day in America. So it's about encouraging the government by the media, encouraging the public by the media, encouraging the armed forces by the media. That's what that clause is talking about. And it's very, very necessary, because one major flaw in the implementation of the security management by our security agencies in this country is lack of cooperation by the public. And if that trust isn't there, as you mentioned, or worsens, then the security situation is going to worsen, no matter the professionalism, training, equipment, and acquired or imposition of the security agencies. Because the public is critical to the implementation of operations. That is, in giving information. You can imagine how the number of Chibok girls, 200, will just disappear. Nobody would tell the security agencies, oh, we heard sound of a vehicle or equipment or an aircraft or buses or trucks moving in so direction. No information whatsoever. So it is very critical. We encourage you, the media, encourage the public to give information. Last, and then the other aspect of it is, of course, interagency cooperation. And that the media also comes in there. In January this year, Ministry of Police Affairs had a 2-day conference. I was a resource person there, delivered 2 papers. And it was mainly on interagency cooperation. And that's very, very critical. And that's where you two come in. To encourage interagency cooperation, sharing of intelligence, not sharing of information, sharing of intelligence. Intelligence is a byproduct of a process of which information, paper, speculation, even dreams or instincts are all raw materials. Now, when it's processed, then you produce the product, which is intelligence. So it is intelligence that is shared, not information among security agencies.
Indeed, the call to action for the media to be patriotic is critical. Well, I don't know how critical it is also to protect the reputation of the government, but it is just as important, and I wish it was stated in the document there, that the media should also hold government to account where need be, especially in terms of security. Let's leave that there, and I understand your need to be cautious and your deliberateness in your analysis, Major Sally, but I'd like you to be as candid as possible in responding to this, especially as it has to do with crisis response initiation as stated in the document. It is stated here that in the event of a national crisis incident that cannot be contained by the local police, the police chain of command will inform the NSA via the IGP, and on behalf of the president, the NSA will activate the Joint Operations Room and the reduction in notice to move to respond or immediate deployment of ministries, departments, agencies within the crisis response unit. And this is the pattern of analysis, even prior to the launch of this document, that in the place of intelligence, when intelligence is deployed, the NSA should act. In terms of responding to the crisis, the office of the NSA should take responsibility. So I believe that perhaps we didn't even need this document to know that there is a responsibility placed on the office of the NSA to act in terms of crisis response. Why aren't we seeing that sense of responsibility from the office of the NSA?
As I said from the beginning, I am not a government official. I'm not representing any security. I'm not a member of any security agency. I left service about a decade ago. And I wasn't part of the this document you're talking about. But I understand it very, very well. And the NSA doesn't have troops, it doesn't have personnel. Setting up for a joint operations room. That's what the document is talking about. Now, in terms of mobilization, various agencies are supposed to have their own local arrangement to respond to whatever decisions are taken from that, arising from the setting up of that joint operations room. That's what I would say about that document. Like I said, it's very difficult for an outsider like myself to, I know you said I should be as candid as possible. This is my country, I care a lot, but I cannot say what I don't know, especially if it is likely to be negative or harmful to the system.
Well, we're not asking you to say what you don't know, but when you say you're an outsider, whoa.
Yeah, well, when you leave service a decade ago...
You become an outsider?
No, not really an outsider, but it will be difficult for you to fairly say certain things. That's why I say I don't want to sound as if I'm blowing my own trumpet.
Yeah, well, I understand that. But on a lighter note, General, when you say this is your country, you're going to stay here, that's understandable. But you say your children are not going anywhere. You're not giving them a choice to decide where they want to be and at what time?
I'll do my best not to allow them.
Not to give them that choice?
Yes. Because
wow.
I believe that if your country is not in good shape, okay, and now you want to running away to another country that is in good shape. Citizens of those countries sacrificed to make their own country in good shape. So stay and make yours.
But General, they should have a choice to decide. But,
I didn't say compel.
Why do you think he's running away?
I didn't say compel. It's running away. Stay in your country and develop your country. That's patriotism.
All right, Major General Saleh Mena is a
Yes,
former...
I want to correct the lady. I'm not Major Saleh. I'm Major General Saleh Mena. I was a major in 1989.
Yeah, that's what I was saying now. So you're a former Chief of Defense for Research and Development, Defense Headquarters. Yeah, among several caps, actually. So we do thank you very much for your time today. We're back in a moment, everyone. Stay with us. Dr. Mudibo right there for you. He joins us next. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
So you don't like the head of missions? It's still your title.
It's a title, but you know, sometimes this title makes us feel somehow. And as a young person, you just need to be calming down and doing the whole thing.
That's what he was talking about before you came on set.
And shedding titles.
He didn't want those titles.
Yeah.
But interestingly, you were there in Kenya for those elections. And so part of the highlights for here today is that the voting system is not that different from ours, is it? So tell us about that. I mean, what exactly played out in terms of the voting system? Or maybe you could go ahead and tell us what it is and how similar it is with ours.
You know, first of all, I would say congratulations to Kenyans. They have done their election in as much as some things are coming up. But I will just try to share what stood out for me, right? In as much as there are a lot of young people in Kenya, we have the same story of young people not believing in the electoral system or coming out to vote. Because prior to the election, we were trying to, you know, do some questions, put some questions around to young people. Are you going to vote? And a whole lot of young people keep saying, you know what, these guys know who is going to win the election, so I will not waste my time, right? So one of the things that I know, everything is similar because this is Africa. The only difference is we're in the West Africa and Kenya is in East Africa, right? Something stood out for me. There was diaspora voting in Kenya. 12 countries participated, and we don't do that. On the ballot papers, you've got logos as well as pictures. We don't do that, right? And something similar that we always see is the officials of, let's say, INEC here, we have what is called REC. They go there to sleep overnight to get all their materials ready, and then they move to the election polling stations and what have you. In Kenya, you go to, as an official, you go to the polling station and sleep there. Then ahead of time they bring. And then one good thing about their own system is the system opened at 6. At 5:15, we were in Embakasa West, Embakasa Girls Polling Station. At 5:15, there were people queuing, right? And officials were there. Everything is there. Voting is starting at 6, and it started at 6, right? That stood for me. And one of the things they did, or I would say we've been doing that, is in every polling station, they divide the polling station to voting point. And at least, at most, you get 700 voters in a particular polling voting station. So you can come to a polling station and need maybe 20 to 25 voting stations in that polling unit, dividing the numbers so that there will not be a lot of chaos in maybe queuing and what have you. And another thing they did that I like is coming from the citizen as well as the election body. Now, as a woman that is pregnant and as an aged person, whether man or woman, if you come, you don't have to follow the line. You just go straight and cast your vote. So one of the things they...
So wait, they get accredited and then vote?
Yes, straight. You get accredited and you vote. And one of the things from the citizen is I've seen 2 or 3 citizens. One is Ibrahim and the other one is Nyangaja. I cannot really pronounce his name very well. The other one has a bus that is transporting people to come and vote. And the other guy was sharing food. Should, in case you get hungry, you know, come get this food. But in some situation, where I think they did not do well is around people living with disabilities. You know, in the Embakasa that I've been to, the first place, there was a voting station that is on a story building, on a 2nd floor. You know, so anybody living with disability, I don't think that person will access that. But we try to put out, you know, sometimes you get this kind of issues. And there is a massive low voter turnout, right?
In spite of the results that we're seeing.
Yes, yes. Because if you go to, let's say, you know, Kenya have got a whole lot of slums, the Kibera and other slums. If you go to the slum part of Kenya, you see massive numbers, you know, waiting to vote. But if you come into the town, the GRA, there's a Catholic school we went through, You know, some polling units have, you know, the numbers are not really encouraging, right? And then there was an issue. People keep saying, while they're queuing to vote, people keep saying, you know, we're just waiting for the result to be announced. And if this one is being announced, the winner, there will be an issue in this side. And if this one is being announced, the winner, there will be an issue in this side. But I did really focus on result. I don't have a problem with any result. Whatever they choose to vote, it's their own country. What I am concerned about is the fact that they've got beavers of what we're having, but they call it Kim kits there, right? How does it work? And that's what I keep looking forward to when I went to all the...
So what did you see particularly?
Now, in most of the thing they did best was the guys were really trained, the officials, the ad hoc staffs that were employed to do that job were really trained well, right? And they've got a mission where they can escalate any issue immediately and that issue will be taken care of.
What kind of issues played up?
Now, some places, if you go to some slums, maybe the network is not that good, you know, so the machine will sort of have issues. I've seen a situation whereby 2 machines had issues, so they had to, so in that polling station, they brought a manual accreditation papers. So what they did, they started accrediting people pending when the technical guys brought the beavers back. So something like this, a lot of things happened. So I will say one thing that stood out for me is they have independent candidates, right? Going back to people, telling people, hey, democracy is all about question and answer. I'm telling you this. I'm asking you questions. Vote for me, right? And then coming back, hold me accountable. That played out. And I would say around 47 you know, independent candidates won election.
So a couple of things you highlighted that they do that we've not done yet.
Yes.
They have diaspora voting.
Yes.
We don't.
Yes.
They have independent candidates. We don't.
Yes.
So, but
the logos and pictures
are also on the ballot.
Yes.
We don't.
Yes.
So, but concerning that accreditation and then voting, where the Kim kit has a challenge, which is similar, we call it beavers, they call it Kim kit.
Yes.
So if they accredit people manually, I'm not sure I think we phased out accreditation manually because INEC says, well, if you come there, if your fingerprint or your picture is not recognized, they have to please step aside.
Yes. Yes.
So when they do that manual accreditation, even though you say they start by 6 a.m.
Yes.
And then pending when the machine functions. So what do? They then take time out to upload it. So isn't that going to have some tailback? Issues. How do they manage that?
Yes. So one of the things in you know, where I went to when that happens, right? The people were I think there were 6 to 7 people that were manually accredited before the technical guys arrived, right? So they had the papers. What they will do, they have what is called Form 34A, right? And that form is the form that is being used to put the result, and then after that you snap it on the beavers and then transmit it, right? So that is what they, you know, use on that particular thing. That accreditation, they snap the accredited people on the pad and then snap the beavers and then transmit it. So in situations like that, that is what happened. I know of places where election did not start till around 10 because of the issues of the Kim card. The machine wasn't working, and then the person in charge had issues with using the manual accreditation. So he had to stay for people to, the technical guys to come sort it out, and then election went on.
So you've noted the differences, the major differences, but Kenya is coming from a history of electoral violence. Post-electoral violence has marred the election. I think in 2007, that was when they first of all introduced this electronic voting, which we are just transiting to now, and it's taken us quite a process. So it's only fair that you watch or, you know, place attention on the process that they have deployed this time around, and obviously they have been able to make some progress. Now, when you look at their process or their system, because this election too was closely fought when you look at the difference between the two
numbers,
leading candidates,
the 50
7.1 million and 6.9 million.
Yes.
Those are really, really close numbers.
Yes.
And every vote would have mattered. And we understand that even the electoral commissioners, some of them have refused to sign just as we speak. So there's still some controversy which could emerge from what we're seeing. But from what you are saying in Nigeria, when you look at the progress that we have made, and where we currently are at, do you think it's really possible for us to adopt as many changes as Kenya has as we speak? For instance, the diaspora vote, or let me not go that far because that's too controversial. Let me talk about the logos of political parties, for instance, putting it side by side with the picture. Is it really a possible thing here in Nigeria from what you know?
All right. So first of all, I will have to give it to INEC. There has been a process. You know, INEC has been changing massively, right? I know while growing up, I know a time where election will be holding where my mom and dad cast their votes back in Adamawa State, and then watching television, you hear people announcing result, right? But you could see there are changes. So I believe in process as a young person, right? I believe in bringing thoughts together, bringing learnings and actions. So I will say they are really going somewhere, right? And maybe the speed at which they're going, it's not really what we're looking forward to in the 21st century, but they're really going somewhere. On the issue of putting a picture and logo. I think it's a good thing for us to adopt because, I mean, it's not all of us that have gone to school. The four walls of classroom, it's another thing in other parts of the country. So if that will really be in place, I think it will be a good thing. So the only thing I will do as a citizen now is to advocate and call for INEC to see that, because we traveled with the INEC chairman and some of his members in the team. You know, we were on the same plane, and I was happy that they witnessed that. Maybe they might have seen something I've not seen because they've got that access of being with the main people in the election. So I will say, just do what you've seen, but you know, to some extent, logistics has always been a problem.
Exactly.
And I've seen that
I was just about
to
hit that, because you said that in Kenya, the electoral officers slept at the polling units.
Yes.
How possible is that in our own context, especially now that we're still dealing with security issues?
Yeah, but the thing is, maybe there's something I've not said. Logistics that we see here, logistics has also played a major role in Kenya. In part of Mombasa, you know, elections were cancelled, you know, some hours to the election because there was issues of, I think, miss of pictures on the ballot papers and what have you. So I think it's like a problem that, or a predicament that all the election bodies need to really look into logistics. Coming back to security, security is everything. I think security is election, and that's why we're doing all these things. So I don't know, maybe the security apparatus can really move by. I don't subscribe to sleeping in the polling station because, I mean, largely, most of the polling stations I've been to in Kenya are largely primary schools and police stations, right? So how can you sleep in a police station? Or how can you sleep in a primary school on the bench or something? Well, I don't subscribe to that. I subscribe to hours of sleeping in the rec, where at least mattress will be provided and other amenities. I subscribe to that.
Sleeping in a police station, I mean, I would think that I've committed a crime if I were doing that. They've got questions away from Lagos, by the way, guys.
Interesting, Mr. Modibo, especially to know Kenya's advancement, considering that they started, you know, this transition to, you know, this digital form of voting some years back. I'd like you to also speak to the transmission of results. The elections were conducted about 5 days ago, and news was that it was going to take time for the final results to be declared. How smooth was that transition, that transmission now? What form of transmission was deployed? Was it manual? Was it electronic? What are the lessons to also be learned from that process?
All right, so if you look at what really happened in Kenya, it took time, you know, almost 6 days for the results to be announced, right? And I know their laws give the commission that point of 7 days to announce. And there have always been an issue of where transmission was done electronically, right? The Form 34A has been transmitted from the polling stations. But what happened, we keep seeing press releases that, you know, the commission has been complaining about all the candidates, the agent of the candidate in the collation center wanting to go through or do an audit of the entire numbers that comes electronically. And that's why the whole thing took time. So I would say if we can really adopt that. I've seen that happen in Osun and Ekiti. So if we can adopt, you know, the transmission of the result electronically, and we will see other form of tabulation where other people can, maybe nobody will give result apart from INEC, but, you know, you can see merging. You can see how the whole thing are coming in, and then you will watch the process and look at how the process is being done. So I would say electronic transmission is the best for us, but all the countries, including Nigeria.
Okay, just before you go, I mean, there was one sheet I saw. I don't know how authentic it is, though, even though it had the logos, the signs of IEBC, where one of the candidates was complaining, or the voters or agents, saying they saw the total number of accredited voters was, I think, about 320. And then they said total number of votes cast was 391. And so they thought that couldn't be. There could be some hanky-panky right there. So those kind of things, were they issues? Did they happen? What did you think of those kind of matters, if at all you heard it?
All right. So I've seen that, but you know, one of the things we do after deploying our Ujakuzi, we call it Ujakuzi, was trying to really fact-check every information that come our own side, right? I will tell you, I've witnessed votes buying, right? But
where? In Kenya.
In Kenya, right? But it's not that much. The vote buying, what really happened, someone was giving around 1,000 Kenyan shillings, that's about $8, right? But some people, maybe the learned people around Kibera, were shouting to the agent, you know, there was a lot of chaos that, oh, you know, we don't need your money, we know who to vote and stuff like that. So most of the informations that go out there are people that were recruited, you know, a part of our pre-election fact-checking process, because one of the things we did is we collected all the Twitter handles, right, of all the people contesting for election. And what do we intend to do with that is just to study how they put up their campaign messages and, you know, how they talk about peace and what have you. And during election, what we're doing was to get opinions from Twitter come through our Ujakuzi application, just for us to fact check and put out the information out there. So some of this information were really not fact checked, right? But some of them really happens. You know, election malpractices, a lot of them happens, but I will not say it has consumed the positive events that happened in the election.
All right. Thank you very much indeed, Mukhtar Modibo, for your perspective and time today.
Thank you.
We're back in a moment. We've got one more lap to go here, so don't go away.
Well, that's basically what we're sinking our teeth into, the position of young people. From the data that INEC released, about 12 million new young people registered to vote in the forthcoming elections in 2023. What issues will be topmost on their mind? I mean, it will be issues that we saw in the papers this morning. Inflation at an all-time high, the highest we've seen since 2005, 19% plus, going up to 20%. I don't know if those issues bother young people. Will it be security? Will it be employment? What precisely will it be? Well, we have this morning two gentlemen in our studios here. Gerald Chinonso is a young stakeholder in the All Progressives Congress, the APC. Mr. Dare Akiniye is Director, Media and Publicity, PDP New Generation. Gentlemen, welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
It's my pleasure.
Good morning. And we also have one more person joining us via Zoom. Dr. Emeka Mandela is a Labour Party chieftain. Good morning and welcome.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians. I can hear you.
Let me start with my guests in the studio. For you, as we go to the election, speaking with your friends, your colleagues, what issues do you think are topmost on the minds of young people as we're going into this election?
Definitely, there are a couple of issues, but I'll be very sorry to say this: the youths contributed to the kind of problems we are having right now. You know, like this insecurity we are having now is #1 issue we'll be having 2023, and we pray that President Muhammadu Buhari will try his best to curtail it, because even 2019 we never believed that we'll have election, and he did everything to make sure that.
So insecurity is an issue for young people?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm telling you that the youths contributed to it for it to exacerbate and get to this extent.
Okay.
And by that, I mean the NSAS that happened. You know,
okay.
That worsened the situation we are having right now. When youths were, breaking all the police stations all around the country, stealing weapons. It's not the old people that did that. They are youths that did that. You know, when you break the police stations, when you kill policemen, we don't even have enough in the country, and you steal the arms and ammunition.
We'll come to NSAS in just a moment, and it's a good thing you're already beginning to shed light on how you think young people contributed to this. But I'm looking at, because the different candidates, the campaigns are yet to kickstart. They're going to start fully in September. I think you're constituting their campaign committees as we speak. But for a number of young people, I'm sure they have the issues which they want the candidates to be able to address and speak squarely on in terms of what they're going to do to address them. So for you, what issues? It looks like you're pointing at security already. Yeah. Is that the only issue you see on the front burner for young people?
The moment people are secured, every other thing is set.
Okay.
You have to be alive first before any other thing.
Okay, so security is on the front burner for you. Let me come to you, Mr. Akini. What are the issues for you? What do you think young people are looking out for in the candidate manifesto when they eventually begin to bring them out?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me there. Let me start by saying you don't fix the blame, you fix the problem. Mm-hmm. And when you begin to look at the genesis of our problem, we have to move it back to leadership. I'm embarrassed that someone can be blaming the young people of this country for contributing to insecurity, which is the topmost role or duty of a democratically elected government or whoever you want to target. I want to speak to two issues: insecurity and the economy. Let's look at the data that was rolled out yesterday, the inflation rate, which is one of the highest in the last 17 years. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, when my own party was handing over to the government, we had it about single digits, 9.0%. And the next year, that was 2015, 2016, they had moved it to 15. And that 2017, they had moved it to, I think 15%.
I'm unable to, double check your figures right now, but I know
you
that
can fact check that.
I can, and I will. Yes. But I know that for the longest of time, inflation has been in double digits, and there's been a race by the CBN to try and rein in inflationary pressure.
Of course.
With monetary policy, and that has produced mixed results, so to speak.
Of course.
But how is inflation affecting young people? Do you want to expatiate a bit more on that?
Of course. For everything that affects the economy, affects the higher percentage of the populace, which is the young people we have. You just mentioned about the voters registration. We have over 75% who are young people, and this affects everybody. Then when you look at it, every day we go out using automobiles, we look at the cost of fuel, look at the cost of food. And let me tell you something, if you are looking at the percentage of inflation, we have 19.64%. And when you look at that, this is just released for July. When you look at the headline increase, you are looking about 1.82%, and that keeps increasing. If we are looking at the forecast, by the time we end this month, we'll be looking about 20 plus. And as at the time we handed over to them, it was about 9.01. So you can look at the difference. And this, to an ordinary Nigerian, what is inflation?
Exactly. I was just
I'm coming to that. I'm trying to lay the
We don't
foundation.
have all the time. So
okay, let me rush it up. Now, if economists will tell you, increase in price and downturn of the value of the currency, but to an ordinary person, you're buying something at 10 naira, and in the next few months, you're buying it at 30, 40. Increasingly, you want to get a pack of probably Actifed, something that you get about 1,000 naira a month ago, and you get to the shelf, they're telling you 4,000 naira or 3,500 naira. So when you look at the percentage, it has a toll on everyone. You have to pay for higher things. And look at this. You are not getting an increased salary. Your salary remains the same. It means you are paying more for half of the value of what you are taking. So those are the issues that we are speaking to as young people, and that's why we must be very, very conscious of those who will be electing in the coming elections.
So indeed, security is at the forefront for you.
Of course, and economy.
And the economy.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought education will be making, will be
you have
somewhere
to have a stable country,
ahead of all of this, ahead of the economy. But hey, what do I know? Dr. Mandela, let me come to you. I do not know whether you also share the sentiment. I know that you have had to be at work very early this morning, carrying out the profession which you're carrying out a job which your profession demands of you. And I know that health is something that we're not exactly where we ought to be. And I think that came to light during the COVID era, where we were told, I mean, even by the people who lead us, that they didn't know that the health sector was this bad. But how high up the agenda do you think that is for young people, the health sector?
Yeah, obviously, I want to just start with one primary thing of making Nigerians remember that the Constitution told us in Section 42B that security and welfare remains the primary purpose of government. And this brings us to the broad topics for this content. Now, welfare, obviously, the health sector, which I am a medical doctor, is represented there. Inflation in the health sector, we've seen from the COVID-19, like you rightly said, has gone so high. And most of this happened because I believe our government
Well, very interesting. We hope to get back Dr. Mandela on that conversation that we're having. Very instructive and interesting one. But I don't know if it's okay for me to take this conversation back to Mr. Chinonso very quickly, the APC young stakeholder. I have for a long time wondered, what the causes of insecurity are. And every time I search over the past 3-4 years or thereabouts, every time I have searched, unemployment has always come first or second most of the time. And many security agencies, even including the military, have said that one of the reasons for insecurity is unemployment. In other words, if we took care of unemployment well ahead of time, we're not likely to have the same level of insecurity that we have now. So for you to say that the young people are the ones responsible for insecurity, who caused their unemployment?
Thank you very much. I have to be very straight and fast about this. Why I'm telling you young people are contributing to it, and they are the main cause of it is that if you tell me that unemployment is the problem, then why is it that the young people will leave Nigeria that they claim that is bad and still go to UK and be stealing? How many of our youths have they caught carrying cocaine and all that? If you claim that Nigeria is bad, then when you go to those countries that have everything you need, why not respect yourself? You know, why not be a good citizen? And I keep saying this, that we Nigerians, or in Nigeria here, that we don't import leaders. We do with what we have.
Yeah, on that.
You have to be a responsible citizen before you can demand accountability.
I agree with you. But then you haven't answered the question of unemployment. Just a second. You haven't answered the question of unemployment. Unemployment is the purpose that government is supposed to facilitate for that government or the private sector to create an employment for people. But most private organizations can't employ now because things aren't just going the way they are. Their investments are not secure because the young people, I mean, you know the saying, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And I don't know the last time the devil did good. So again, the question remains, who solves the problem of unemployment, creates the enabling environment for employment to be created?
Still the same thing we are saying here. You know, the government have to create employment, and not only the government, you know.
But has government been able to do that?
Employment too. But what I'm trying to say is when the government is trying to create that employment by making railways.
Has government been able to do that, create the employment?
You're hearing me. When the government is making, making effort to build those railways, create employment here and there, and you see those youths vandalizing it, is it the fault of the government? This is what I keep saying. As you are looking at me here, tomorrow you will see me as a governor or commissioner somewhere. If I'm a criminal, even if you make me a governor there, I will continue being a bad person.
One other way that in which we engage young people. First. Yes, I agree with you. One other way is
70% of Nigerians youth
just a second, Mr. Chinoso, because as Marquez said, we don't really have much time. So, so let's try to, look at these issues as quickly as possible so that we can get something good out of it. One of the ways in which we engage young people, one other way in which we engage young people so they don't have time for things they shouldn't have time for, is education. You know very well that it's about 6 months now that ASU has been on strike. And I don't know if you know the figures of the millions of people who are out of school, whether in the north or in the south. Is that also the fault of young people?
Okay. I am aware that the youths are on strike, and it really hurts, because as far as I'm concerned right now, the national youth leader of the APC, because I'm speaking for the youths, especially for the APC right now, the national youth leader of the APC, Honorable Dayo Israel, has made a lot of efforts. He has met the Minister of Labor and Productivity, Chris Ngige. They talked about it extensively. He has met the ASU leadership. They have discussed about it. Like I watched Honorable Festus Kayamo the last time, saying if it will entail him begging the ASU leadership to help students go back to school, they should do that. And I heard that the ASU, they are having meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari or the presidency this week. I just hope they resolve this issue, because I don't know, this is no longer politics, because it's not only APC students that are on strike, even PDP, Labour Party, everybody. Everybody just have to put them together and beg this ASU. I don't really know what the problem, I don't really know, Well, I just hope they resolve it soon.
Okay. Let me talk to Mr. Akini, the Director of Media and Publicity for PDP New Generation. Well, you, I'm sure, paid attention, or at least caught a bit of the conversation we had with Mr. Modibo, who monitored the Kenya elections on ground right there in Kenya. And one of the things that he said that struck me is the youth apathy that has been there until now in Kenya. And we have suffered the same thing for a long time. He also spoke about a huge level of voter apathy, especially from young people who do not want to be a part of the process because as far as they're concerned, what they want is what is going to happen. We will not be able to make significant impact. But the narrative lately has been a little different for young people. How do you propose that we go about that in a way that we can get a massive participation of young people in this next election?
Well, thank you. I will speak from the perspective of the PDP, the party that I represent, the PDP New Generation. The coming election is an election that is so crucial to young Nigerians because we have been the most endangered species, so to speak, and we have to take our destiny in our hands. And I must tell you, because in the PDP we have seen a leader who is likely to be a transitional leader to the young people of this country, and that's why we're looking at the election has to be something we take by our hands and make sure we put in the right leaders. For everything that has to be gotten right, start from the leader. But by the time you start giving excuses and you cannot get something tangible out of it, then it boils down to the young people. The PDP New Generation has been able to galvanize young people across board, and we are making sure that the young people of the PDP and the women will be voting in like time, inviting others who are not part of this party to vote for the right leader. And we have seen that the best candidate so far would be our own candidate. So that's what I can say in regards to our own drive in getting the young people to vote in the next coming election, not only in the presidential election, but across board in the country.
It shouldn't be just about members of your party, Mr. Akini. It should be across board. As many young people as possible should be able to be a part of the thing. So that's why I'm asking, as Mr. Chino said the other time, let's collapse the political walls now and speak to young people concerning how they hold the destiny of this nation in their hands.
Yeah, the basic truth I would say is this. We know that in the next coming months, the young people of this country have the power, and we are not only limiting this to our own members alone. We are putting it across board to everyone from all parties, especially from our brothers who are in the other parties, who at the end of the day will be frustrated and they have nowhere to go down to join the PDP and vote the right candidate. So we are not limiting it to our own members alone. And a lot of young people have been, joining the party, and I can speak for my own group, which is the PDP New Generation. We have well over 30,000 members that have been registering through the website, and we have more people who are increasingly asking for membership card in the PDP. And we're saying we are getting the undecided youth who, at this point in time, knows that the only party that they can trust with their vote is the PDP. They know we won't be giving them excuses or we will be claiming that we are unaware of the problems, but we're sure that we will speak true to the issues on ground, and by the special grace of God, when we take over power, there will be a new lease of life in Nigeria.
Indeed, it's been rightly said that this election, the coming election, is critical, especially for young people. And, there's a rallying point in recent times for the young people. I'm coming to you now, particularly for your party, Dr. Mandela. They're rallying behind your candidate. But I wonder if the force of this movement is directed at asking the right questions, particularly because of the concern that your candidate is pretty much untested at the federal level. How can this movement be galvanized in such a way that the youth will ask the right questions, that will lead to them making the right choice ahead of 2023?
All right. Thank you so much. Dr. Mandela remains my name. I think basically the youth actually rose up because they saw a deficiency over time. And that deficiency was reflected in the economy of the nation and obviously insecurity. It became so much to the extent that the youth who believe up to an extent previously on the leadership of the nation lost total confidence and say we have to among all leaders of the old generation that the youths have believed failed us, we saw in a man, Peter Obi, who has some similarities that are quite different from the rest in terms of his low-cost living and his well-informed understanding about the economy of the nation. The rally round behind the obedient movement we see today is not born out of an uninformed understanding of what we are suffering or what we are seeing in Nigeria. The movement is focused on coming to address the issues that have taken youth out of their resting point to become so active to know how the nation can actually be better. So the pertinent questions which is behind every youth in this struggle of a new Nigeria under the Labour Party through Mr. Peter Obi is, how do we solve the economic issue of this nation that has left a lot of youth unemployed, that has left a lot of youth unengaged? And when youth are unengaged, we have over 200 million Nigerians. And if a large chunk of that population are unengaged positively, it means that they will be left with no option than to look for other means to survive. But in
seeking, Dr. Mandela, but in seeking these alternatives, don't you see your movement, caught in the euphoria of getting an alternative candidate without particularly interrogating this candidate on how he intends to bring them the deliverables, security, power supply, and all the other issues that relate with the economy? Don't you think they're caught in the euphoria of the movement without necessarily asking the questions?
Okay, before we are caught in the euphoria, actually the question is what caught us? And the thing that caught us is the consistent message from Mr. Peter Obi on how he's going to solve these problems and telling us how he has solved problems in the past. And using the words verify, meaning go and check if I can do this. And we've done and he can do it. Now, before we started following Mr. Peter Obi, we watched him carefully. And what was he saying? He was saying, how can we solve our problems? And what are these problems? Let's take insecurity, for instance. He kept telling us, the most important aspect of insecurity first is to understand why there is insecurity before you start treating the cause. And why is there insecurity? There is insecurity because a lot of people are doing nothing. They are idle. An idle man is the devil's workshop. So the first thing he says he's going to do is to engage the youth gainfully through employment and other means to get them busy, active, and productive. And that is where we move from his wonderful mantra of changing Nigeria from a consumptive nation to a productive nation. And the only way it can happen is using the numbers of the youths, that workforce from the youths. By the time when you see a man who is thinking of a productive mantra, you know that the production comes from the multiplication of the youth numbers. Meaning the youth are going to be gainfully engaged in productive activities of this nation. And if that is done, insecurity is going to come down. Again, he didn't stop there. Obviously, insecurity also has some other secondary issues outside the main context of solving the unemployment. We have areas of poor security structuring. And that is why he kept saying, we are going to restructure the security aspect of our defense system. It is very important we look into that. We need to know why our defense is not so active in combating crime. And he kept telling us one aspect he's going to invest in is strategic repositioning of our security personnel, where we have over 20 policemen following one VIP, and we have 5 policemen guarding an entire community. So how do you expect bridges of insecurity not to take place? Again, the last thing he keeps telling us that makes us we have confidence in him is the issues of
intelligence gathering. Security issues in every nation, intelligence gathering should be one of the top priorities of the security chiefs. And we don't think that that is actually utilized in its maximum capacity. If we actually put in more effort in intelligence gathering, obviously, before a crime is committed, the information should have gotten to the security details. And they will have a robust team that will checkmate it even before it occurs. That's why we talk of strategic repositioning, like His Excellency Mr. P2B tells us. So we're not following him blindly or following a movement blindly. We are following him because of what we've heard him say and what we know he can do, because what he has done in the past that we have verified. He is well informed in what is happening in the country, most especially on the security aspect, which he believes can be solved through these few areas that I have just told you. Thank you. Hello?
All right then. So gentlemen, let's ask both of you. Do you both have your permanent voter cards?
Yes, of course.
So for you, as an individual, when going to vote, what will be most important to you?
Thank you very much. The most important thing for me is, to vote the person I feel that will make this country better.
Specifically? In what way? I mean, when you say better, what exactly?
In all ramifications: education, security, technical know-how, assembling the best people to do the job. Because even if you bring Obama as the president of Nigeria, if he cannot assemble the right people to work with, he will not achieve anything. So that's why.
So if you wanted one sector that is affecting you directly, that you just cannot wait that they address it, what would it be?
Economy.
Okay.
And they have talked about their candidates, except me. At least give me a few minutes to talk.
Yeah, I just asked the first question, what would be the most important thing? You've spoken about that, so when he speaks about that, then we'll come to the next one. So how about you? What will be the most important thing?
The most important thing is security of lives and property. If you don't have that, there's nothing that can work. You won't have a country. Nobody comes in. Security first.
So then now you can go ahead and speak about what you want to talk about.
Okay. Like I was saying.
Just briefly, because we're wrapping up though, but go ahead.
So what I'm saying is, within this 2019 to 2022, we have witnessed a lot of problems,
So basically, why would you think anybody would want to vote for your candidate?
Because whatever we are witnessing now is not President Muhammadu Buhari's fault. COVID-19, since I was born, I've never witnessed such a thing. It's crumbled the world. It's not, whatever that is happening in Nigeria now is happening in every part of the world.
Are you comparing the circumstances upon which one he took over and what it is now?
Yes. Check when President Muhammadu Buhari took over, where Nigeria was, the oil,
like
everything. What? You have to, when you want to judge.
Do you want to talk about the price of maybe say a bag of rice or bag of beans? What was it then? What is it now? That affects everybody. What
was the price of oil then and now? No, all those things. You can't just say President Muhammadu Buhari, he didn't do this, he didn't. You have to put everything into perspective. It's not, he has done tremendously well. Now, look at the area of infrastructure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Look at the area of infrastructure, what he has been able to do. Nigeria was very safe until that enters.
Really?
Yeah, when youths were killing policemen, touching away weapons. Okay, after stealing weapons from police stations and killing policemen.
How are you conceiving? I mean, NSAS was not a movement that started last year. It was a movement that had been on for a while. I mean, it started online, but it did not become a physical protest until last year. And what was it about? It was about ending police brutality. Isn't that correct?
Yes, of course.
And citizens had been making complaints about reforming the police. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if things eventually went out of hand, I mean, however it was that it went out of hand, can citizens be blamed for seeking reforms to the primary agency that should be in charge of their security?
Do you know why I blame them? You said President Muhammadu Buhari should reform the SARS, and he did that. He agreed with you. Oh yeah, leave the streets, and you refused. Before you know it, opposition now bought into it. And they
opposition?
Opposition did that. It became political. That's why it degenerated into that.
Okay, we have less than 2 minutes.
So what I'm saying is that my candidate, Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu, is the best to lead this nation.
All right.
2023.
Dari.
Okay, yeah, let me go straight to the point. If you look at from December 2020 to August 2021, we had over 819 students that were kidnapped across the country, just 4 incidents. And out of those numbers, we have over 414 students who are kidnapped in the home state of the president, meaning the country is not safe. He was saying the president has done so. Let him have a road trip from Abuja to Kaduna. Then we'll see how we can raise money for him or raise money for anyone who has decided to accompany him. My own is so simple, and for every young Nigerian that we know the APC has failed, and we know the only party that has the muscle, the structure to replace this aberration, because in the first place, we shouldn't have had them, is the PDP. And the only candidate who can give all these boxes checked, from security to economy, youth and women involvement in politics, but to education and true federalism, unification of the country. And that's why we call him the unifier. It's Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. And I will want to quickly correct him on the issue of NSAS. There was an NSAS movement that eventually culminated to NSAS protests. You cannot blame the young people who have come on the street to say, this is what we want, this must stop. Why blaming them? They have their right to protest. The government have failed in protecting them on the streets.
When you blame young people, I hope you know, if they show you images of young people, even in the APC and all political parties, would you also say, well, yeah, they were also at fault, even though they were members of your party? Because I don't know how you came to the conclusion that they were opposition.
No, I agreed with the masses. When they started the NSAS, I agree with them that the SARS, they must be reformed.
But have you spoken to youth in your party about that?
Of course.
What happened?
During the NSAS.
Did they admit culpability?
No.
Is this your personal view, or is this how your party sees it?
About
NSAS?
This is my personal view, and that's how every reasonable person sees it. You know?
Well, I don't know about
I need to chip in. Even the president has the assumption that people were protesting and they were coming to the seat of power to overthrow him.
Yes.
So that is the mindset of the APC. That is what they believe in. That is the generality. He's speaking for the party, and that is the normal, narrative that is being, pushed out, that the opposition or the young people were behind the NSAS process, just to scatter everything. So I will leave the decision to the voters
there are a lot of videos to show. Threatening, burn down Lagos, kill Tinubu if you see him.
The conversations are going to be ongoing, but it looks like, right now you gentlemen have a mission on your hands in terms of winning over new converts to your different sides. So let us see how your message resonates with the demographic which you're trying to reach out to. But thank you very much for coming on Sunrise this morning.
Thank you.
Gerald Chinonso is a young stakeholder within the APC. Mr. Dari Akini is Director of Media and Publicity, PDP New Generation. And we also had with us via Zoom Dr. Emeka Mandela, who is the Labour Party chieftain. Well, that's about what we can take on this segment. I think we have a few feedback from our viewers.
Well, this first one is from Moshinal Kingsley, who says, insecurity, unemployment, poverty, high cost of governance, corruption, nepotism are results of bad leadership tolerated over time. The young people should rise up and save Nigeria by voting wisely in the coming general elections.
And Festus Akimboyewa says, turnout in the just concluded Kenya elections, which is about 65%, is the only lesson Nigerians can learn from the election. Nigerians must do better than 65% turnout in 2023. It's doable, so says Festus.
And from Victor Owo, we have the NCMD document signing is a move in a good direction. My prayer is that those in charge will actually rise up to the calling when there is a crisis. We have cases where we call emergency numbers and get no response, or we get a response and no follow-up.
Well, these are issues that have been raised by sundry Nigerians, and we can only hope that everyone who needs to do anything about it has listened and taken one thing or the other today. That's the show today. Thank you so much for watching, for giving us a bit of your morning. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for watching. I'm Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Bye for now.
I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf. Thank you.
And I am Chamberlain Asa. Goodbye.